So this is a Silver Zen on King's Row, and this player's asked me to look in particular at this third point. His team gets held here for about 5 minutes, which is always a sign of something going wrong. Now, the first big misplay from you is not reacting very fast to your Mercy. Now, she goes for a pretty obscene res, right? Like, there's no way she should have gone for this, but, she goes for it anyway. And you don't really react, at all fast enough with the Harmony. And as then you've really got to understand your responsibility of sort of keeping Mercy alive. Similar to the way that healer comps have worked in the past, where, maybe Lucio has been responsible for keeping Anna alive. Zen has this big responsibility for keeping Mercy alive too, because one of the reasons they've been paired so much with each other recently is because a Mercy with Harmony Orb can be, almost unkillable in a lot of situations. Like I said, I don't know if it would have actually saved her here, but you have to react really fast to when your Mercy's taking damage, and as Zen, you need to just always be on the lookout. Always, always, always. As soon as the Mercy was even at risk of taking damage here, put the Harmony Orb on her, because it is honestly your most important job as Zen in this meta. Keep your Mercy alive, because keeping her alive, she's going to be able to heal other people, she's going to be able to res other people, and, even if she wasn't saved here, reacting this late is a huge misplay. So you spend most of this third point just sort of throwing right clicks around corners, waiting for your team to regroup. And your right click usage is okay, but I would have liked to see you use this cover a little bit better. Just like hug these corners a little bit tighter. There's that sort of barrier behind you that you could have crouched behind and then sort of peek around the side. You don't need to be over peeking this that much, especially when you already have your ultimate and you're not really peeking for damage. You're just sort of, poking for picks maybe, or trying to put pressure on. You don't need to be over peeking this as much. You see later on you actually get like slept because you're over peeking. Try and hug these corners, and in these situations where you actually already have your ultimate and you don't need to be putting out these damage sets, just make sure that you stand alive and waiting for your team. Because number one priority for, everyone on your team at the moment should just be trying to get those regroups. Throughout this VOD, your team, regroups the fights very, very slowly. So you only actually get in about 3 or 4 fights throughout this 5 minutes, which is pretty bad. Make sure that you stay passive and you're not at any risk of dying, because setting back your team is really bad. So you're about to come forward here, and then you trance out. Now, trancing here wouldn't have actually been that bad of an idea. Trancing here wouldn't have actually been that bad of an idea if you were going to die. Unfortunately, you weren't going to die, and if you were going to die, this Mercy probably could have res you anyway. But trancing here isn't really the misplay, because if you died here, you would have set your team back for another, 20 seconds maybe while you're coming back from spawn. The misplay you made was coming so far forward in the first place. Staying alive in this situation is unbelievably important compared to everything else. Even if this D.Va had been allowed to get away, you staying sort of safe is way more important. And it's all of these minor misplays, everyone on your team makes them, including you. You might only make sort of 2 or 3 throughout this 5 minutes, but when all 6 members of your team make 2 or 3, it really adds up, and it's the reason why you get full held like this. We'll see that you do a similar thing with the second trance that you build, and not getting any value out of your trance on this third point is pretty sloppy, because every time you try and get a push together, you just get wiped with ults, and the trance would have really helped in those situations. So while you're grouping up and waiting for your team, try and make sure that you don't get baited into situations like this, because you really shouldn't have had to burn trance here. So here we see your team push around the corner, and their Junkrat gets 3 kills. Now, at this point, you just need to run away, right? You're not going to win this fight. They have a really good respawn advantage. You've lost 3 members of your team. There's not really any way you're going to win this fight. And you had ample chance here to just sort of back up and wait, but instead you start, you edge forward, you go closer, and then by the time that you die, you can see your teammates are about to respawn. They're about to respawn, they're about to group up for another push, and although you haven't died that much later than them, it's enough to, waste more, valuable time. And it's, again, these tiny little mistakes that everyone on your team's making really add up, and, again, it's the reason why you get full held for so long. So definitely trying to look out for these moments where it's pretty obvious you're not going to win a fight, and you either need to, die immediately or escape. Another one of these situations is coming up here, where, I think your Reinhardt charges in, then your Hanzo dies, and I think your Monkey dies too. What's this? Yeah, okay. So from this point, it's pretty obvious you're not going to win the fight. So, either jump in front of this Reinhardt and just suicide to group up faster, or, run away and stay alive. Instead, your Mercy goes in, she dies, and at this point, you just need to run away, you need to die, you need to group up. What you really do not want to do is waste an ultimate when there's only two of you left. Um, I imagine that you knew this was a misplay as soon as you did it, but I really need to stress how much these sort of, although I wouldn't really call this a minor mistake, I really need to stress how, just two or three mistakes from individual members of the team, do add up. I've said it quite a lot, but it seemed like you were quite interested in how you managed to waste 5 minutes on the third point, and really that is why. So this clip that you sent me was quite unlucky because, your team didn't reset very fast, and whenever they got a push together, they just got shut down with ults. So there wasn't really too much to say about you personally. The biggest things for you are going to be, remembering to reset faster though. Your resets were really slow as a team, and contributing to that by, either dying immediately or backing up is going to be really important. And, the chances that you wasted were pretty bad too, because, like I said, every time your team actually grouped up, they got wiped by ultimates. That trance would have really helped in those situations. So it's not really acceptable for you to be wasting that in this way. For a more general point about your Zen play, your harmony usage is really poor. You seem to react very, very slowly to people needing harmony, sorry. And I think there's a situation coming up here where, yeah, I think it starts now, where you don't have harmonies out for about 20 seconds, and it's crazy. Uh, it's like harmony is a really important part of Zen's kit, and you should pretty much always default to putting out harmony before you do anything else, because you can put it out on the teammate who's most likely to take damage, and then just leave it on them. As long as you're in line of sight of them, it's going to stay there, and you can focus on putting out damage. As long as that harmony orb is out, you can work on your prioritization later, but just straight up not having your healing orb out for such a long time is really bad. And in general throughout this VOD, I skipped through some of the rest of it as well. You react very, very slowly with your harmonies. Do understand that although Zen does a lot of damage, and he really should be treated like a sort of backline DPS, his main role is going to be keeping those heals out, because if he doesn't keep those orbs out, his team's going to suffer for it, and more importantly, it's going to really stress out your second healer, and they're going to struggle to try and keep everyone up. So how slow you react with your harmonies throughout the whole of this VOD is really poor. So I definitely work on trying to stay more aware of when your team actually needs the help, because harmony should, as a rough guideline, be sort of step one to every engage. Make sure it's out. Make sure it's out on who's most likely to take damage, because it should almost always be that first thing that you look out for. Not only before each fight, but mid-fight too.